Shabbat Shalom. It's so wonderful to see you all here. I am Toby Glaser. I am the cantor here at Congregation Sherith Israel, joined by Jonathan Dimmick, our music director, and Peter and Zach helping us with our technology. Thank you so much for joining us on this long weekend, and thank you to those of us who are joining virtually. It's clearly been a difficult week for the community, for the United States. It seems every week is a difficult week, but I thought we could set our intention with a reading on page 8. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life. Beautiful way to set our intention for services. I love that God needs no words, no prayers or services, but I need them, and I certainly need this Shabbat joy, this Shabbat community this evening. So with that, let's please welcome our board president, Judy Wexler, to say a few words of welcome.
Thank you, Cantor. It's a pleasure to see all of you and to start this holiday weekend with you. It's a typical summer in San Francisco. I'm wearing gloves. I think Toby, what you started us with so mirrors what I was thinking as I thought about coming here tonight and thinking about this 4th of July weekend. And the hopes and the vision and the values that we all, I think, have embraced through our lives about what country means, what society means, and the struggle right now to make sense of everything that's going on. And so it's, I think, particularly important to have this place, this time, to step back from all of that, to remember the place of awe in the world and the opportunity to reconnect with our community and our values. So Shabbat Shalom, may we experience some peace in the weeks to come. Thank you.
Thank you. And because even in difficult times, we can still celebrate birthdays, I would like to invite Nancy Sheftel-Gomes to light our Shabbat candles. And anyone else I believe we had several community members who had birthdays. Anyone else who had a birthday this week like to join us on the Bima? Was it Monday? Sunday. Okay, well. 77. Mazal tov. A lot of great years. Thank you so much for everything you do for us. Amen.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. We continue with our service with Lecha Dodi on page 20 to welcome the Shabbat bride. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה פני שבת לקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת לקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה. סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שידברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. We rise to greet the Shabbat bride. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוניה עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. 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 We continue with a beautiful reading on page 27 in the English. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer, on the mystery of a withered leaf, on ripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. We continue with the Baruch Hu on page 28. Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב ערבים. We continue with Ahavat Olam on page 32. אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ומצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגעה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. Please please be seated as we continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha veshinantam levanecha vedibarta bam בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני, אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני, אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. We continue on the bottom of page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered at Sinai. We bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again, we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אליהם, נורא תהילות אוסף אליהם. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים. זה לי אנו ואמרו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי ודע אדוני את יעקב, וגלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל. As we have heard so many times in our service, this Hashkivenu prayer is a blessing, asking for God's peace to protect us, to shelter us. But as you may remember from one of my sermons in song, it is also a prayer that's recited just before we go to sleep. And so I like to think of this as a beautiful lullaby for Shabbat, as our kind of Shabbat introduction to set us in the peace that we need for the next 25 hours, to really put us in the mindset, in the frame of peace, which I think we need more than anything this particular Shabbat. So please enjoy this Shabbat lullaby, Hashkivenu. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, לשלום. והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים, לחיים, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. סוכת שלום, סוכת שלום, סוכת שלום עלינו, עלינו. As I lay me down, may I feel peace all around, sheltered beneath your wings. May I feel safe and protected until a new day begins. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Ve'hamidenu, shomrenu l'chaim, l'chaim. Sukkot shalom, Sukkot shalom, Sukkot shalom aleinu, aleinu, aleinu. Come now to the point in our service where we ask for healing of those in our lives who may be in need of such healing, whether it's mind, body, or soul. If there's someone you're thinking of, then think of them as you sing this piece. But also, if there's no one you're thinking of, then please continue to send goodwill to our community, to the United States, and to those who may be suffering at this time. We continue with the Mishaberach on page 253. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. At this time, our community thinks of Zur Miriam Bat Hana Moshe, Aharon Ben Tzvi, Jim Blattner, Bob Fonero, William Kurian, Agnes Rothblatt, Dr. Eric Tabus, and Shell Wolf. If there's anyone you are thinking of this time who you're holding in your heart, please say their name as I go around the room. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. continue with the Adonai Sfatai on page 46. Please rise. Yadai-dai-dai, yadai-dai-dai-dai, 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 yadai-dai-dai-dai. Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yadai-dai-dai-dai, 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 yadai-dai-dai-dai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. We continue silently, using either the prayers on the page or the prayers of your heart. We will join together in a blessing for peace on page 62. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. 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 I always find that setting really comforting. It's such a well-known Jewish classic. It's like a bowl of hot stew. It's just a really comforting piece, and I think certainly something that unites us in a moment of song. Our parsha this week is Korach. In it, the Levite Korach joins with the Reubenites, Datan and Abiram, in order to plot a challenge to the authority of Moses and Aaron. Their plot is unsuccessful, and Korach, Datan, and Abiram are struck down and swallowed by the earth, along with their followers. Rachel Cowan writes, "What a dramatic power struggle we have just witnessed in this parsha. A cabal of influential rebels tries to take power from Moses, daring to risk their lives to promote their own self-interest over the sacred destiny of their people. Their downfall is stark and dreadful. Yet the Torah teaches, even though Korach dies, his descendants live on. We certainly see them today. Cynical, political, religious, and communal leaders cloaking self-interest in the language of democracy, nationalism, or God. In wielding power in such short-sighted ways, these modern-day rebels present an even greater threat to God's creation than Korach did to Moses' leadership. This Torah portion urges us to be vigilant, lest such persons undermine the communities we are called to create and sustain." Cowan's words could not be more pertinent to this moment in time. We stand in grieving for a right which many thought had been won for good and would remain protected for their children and future generations. We stand grieving for our planet, where our environmental protections are being eroded in a time of crisis. Korach had the arrogance to believe that he knew better than Moses. The Torah states that Korach and 250 representatives of the community, chieftains with fine reputations, combined and said to Moses and Aaron, "You have gone too far." Similarly, the justices of the Supreme Court who voted to abandon Roe v. Wade may be seen by some to have fine reputations. They also may represent certain voices in the wider community who felt that our abortion laws went too far. Nevertheless, I would argue the decision on whether to carry life is a burden of leadership, and this sacred burden should always remain with the person who carries this power. Like Moses, women and those who can bear children must make choices which will affect those around them in order to best benefit their communities and those closest to them and themselves, which is the essence of leadership. Another aspect of this parsha, which is recounted through our Sidra, is the notion of the priesthood, which is elevated to protect the Holy of Holies, the Mishkan. I can't help but wonder about the relationship between holiness and separation. Moses questions Korach, asking, "Hear me, sons of Levi. Is it not enough for you that the God of Israel has set you apart from the community of Israel and given you direct access to perform the duty of the Eternal's tabernacle and to minister to the community and serve them? Korach, Datan, and Abiram were dissatisfied with their status. It was not enough to be chieftains in their own communities. They felt fundamentally that they should have sovereignty over the people Israel. It seems we can draw parallels between this failure of separation in the Torah and our own time. Like Korach, it seems the majority of the court is not satisfied with its own status in the community. It has chosen to represent a section of the community which does not represent contemporary society. The justices have chosen to rebel, to separate themselves from the hard-won gains in equality, that those who are able to bear children should not be forced into lives that they did not choose and thereby lose their fundamental human rights. Just as Korach and his band wish to place themselves above God, so the Supreme Court also violates Jewish thought on the conception of life and the right to choose when and how to bear children. The Women's Rabbinic Network wrote, "In this moment, our feelings are best embodied by Numbers 11:10. God became exceedingly angry, and Moses despaired. We stand with generations of Jewish scholars who state clearly and unequivocally that abortion access is a Jewish value. In the true spirit of Jewish values, Congregation Lador Vador of Boynton Beach has filed a lawsuit in Florida, which contends that a new law banning abortions after 15 weeks that was supposed to take place today violates Jewish teachings, which state, abortion is required if necessary to protect the health, mental, or physical well-being of the woman. The congregation asserts, as such, the act prohibits Jewish women from practicing their faith free of government intrusion, and this violates their privacy rights and religious freedom. The lawsuit adds that people who do not share the religious views reflected in the act will suffer, and that it threatens the Jewish people by imposing the laws of other religions upon Jews. In other words, the Supreme Court has again separated itself from equality and from the very tradition from which Christianity springs, going against Jewish values and the values of the majority of Americans. In a further disturbing link to our Parsha this week, the Supreme Court also ruled that the EPA cannot use a systematic approach to carbon emissions. Justice Alana Kagan wrote in her dissent, "Let's say the obvious. The stakes here are high, yet the court today prevents congressionally authorized agency action to curb power plants' carbon dioxide emissions. The court appoints itself instead of Congress or the expert agency, the decision maker on climate policy. I cannot think of many more things frightening." I have read many headlines around this decision. Supreme Court deals massive blow to the planet. Supreme Court rules 6-3 that the planet should burn. The Supreme Court has lit our planet on fire. Although these may seem sensationalist, they are not without truth. I am horrified by the treatment of our planet, but let us remember that the earth will survive. It will exist long after we are gone. Our Parsha warns of those who would choose to separate themselves from the needs of their communities. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up. Moses laments, if these people's death is that of all humankind, if their lot is humankind's common fate, it was not the Eternal who sent me. I pray that this is not the fate of all humankind, that we are able to overcome these obstacles and that we are able to care for the earth so that it can remain a safe place for all to live. But the Korachs of the world who continue to separate themselves for the petty desires of the few continue to jeopardize not just their own future, but those of the entire human race. If the Supreme Court is to remain an institution for good, there must be a reckoning in their role in the lives of the public and the way they choose to interpret the law, which causes untold suffering and pain to millions. Although the priesthood is no longer a part of Reform Judaism, the spirit of protecting holiness, of doing God's will in our communities, continues to resonate through our rabbis' words and actions. In order to take back its own credibility and humanity, the Supreme Court needs to be a body which represents the majority of Americans and not the few who choose to adhere to certain religious beliefs or pander to corporate interests. Although Korach was wrong in his attacks on Moses, and we see him as a villain today, his words, "All the community are holy, and the Eternal is in their midst," do ring true today. Perhaps we can learn from his uprising. Although Korach wished to seize power for himself and represent his chosen band of rebels, his ultimate failure shows us that holiness does indeed rest in all of us, and we are therefore worthy of the right to fight for the needs of all humankind, for the protection of the earth, for bodily autonomy, and for freedom of religion, to pursue holiness as we see it in the Jewish tradition. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to take a moment now to acknowledge any simchas in our community. We hold tragedy and rejoicing in the same space here on Shabbat. If there is anyone who would like to share something that's happened this week, yeah, please. Leslie. Happy birthday to you and your grandson. Excellent. Anyone else? Yes, please, Mary. Excellent. Mazal tov. Anyone else? Please. Excellent, yes, and we are going to honor her, I believe, next week. I'm very excited. Happy birthday to Agnes. With that, let's say a Shehechianu. Baruch atah Adonai. Please rise. Almost got through it without. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. We continue with the Aleinu on page 282. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Zichronam levacha, may their memories be for blessing. We remember for Shloshim Molly Klepper. If there's anyone here remembering anyone for Shiva or Shloshim, please rise and share a name with the community. We remember for the first year of mourning for Shana, Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Marty Wiener. If there's anyone here in the first year of mourning, please rise and share a name. The perpetual memorials in our community are Ingrid Apter, Shoshana Chana Asher, Judy Migdale, Leon Mervis, Joseph Sadler, and Harold Weiss. The Yardzites anniversaries of death on this date are Jacob Berger, Jack Berman, Dorothy Bernard, Mark Chaney, Bertha Friedman, Helen E. Hoffman, Issei S. Lakach, Maya David Mervis, Libby Silver, Dorothy Steiner, Ann M. Stern, Anatoly Zagatsky. If anyone is remembering a yahrzeit or commemorating a loved one at this time, please rise and share a name. We rise in solidarity with our mourners and continue with the Mourners Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma tivrach hiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei d'kudsha barichu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma ve'imru. Amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen. Please be seated. We have lots of wonderful announcements, lots of fun things coming up. Next Shabbat morning with myself and Carolyn Mulcahy and the Jewish Baby Network, we have our event for tots for babies. Please make connections and build friendship with SF families. We will have some music from myself, puppetry, and non-stop Shabbat fun. Bring a blanket. So anyone with young children, I believe under 5s, please join us for Shabbat morning in the park. We have our summer salons coming up with authors. Please refer to the dates. They're running from July 13th to August 10th on Wednesday evenings. We have many amazing authors in the congregation who are sharing their new works, both with Rabbi Graff and Executive Director Gordon Gladstone. So please look ahead to that. We have our first Yap Shabbat, late Shabbat here on July 15th. Anyone who's in their 20s and 30s, please join us for some music, some wine, some dessert. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's 8 p.m. here in the sanctuary. And please sign up for studio if you have someone who is of studio age. And tomorrow morning we have Torah study with myself. So if you didn't get enough cantorial speaking this evening, then please join us. We're going to look at Korach again, discuss Korach's wife and how she fits into the story, which is very interesting in the Midrash. So please join us. Let's all rise for our Kiddush, please. We'll continue on page 5. Any other announcements that we had? Looking around? No? Excellent. Cool. Let's recite Kiddush on page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. I feel like after last week's challah, it's kind of underwhelming. We're back to the store-bought stuff. For those of you who weren't here, we had this amazing rainbow challah for Pride Shabbat. But this, I don't want to say bad things about the challah in front of the challah. So let's do our motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. Amen. Thank you so much to Peter Bonos, to Zach Migdale, and of course our wonderful music director, Jonathan Dimmick. We are going to close with Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, which can be found on page, let me just triple check that, 343. No, it can't wait. Let me find it. Where is it? Sorry, 1 second, everyone. The words are Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. It's fine. You'll find it. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם, סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם, סלאם עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלאם, סלאם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. Shabbat Shalom. Please join us for our oneg up the back. I see some less familiar faces. Please introduce yourself. Please stay, have some cheese, have some wine. Shabbat Shalom.